when I was asked to do this talk, I thought of what might be appropriate. I thought of really working on what, we all experience on a personal level, which is negative thought. And so I thought I would give a talk on healing negative thought patterns or trauma. I wrote this talk while taking my spiritual healer training with Alberta Spiritual Healing Association last year. So that's ASHA. So the training manual we used was the book by Jack Angelo entitled Hands-on Healing, which was written in 1997. And it's become something of a manual for, I'm sure, spiritual healers everywhere. Jack Angelo is a shaman, spiritual healer, and counselor. He's a healer member of the National Federation of Spiritual Healers in the UK as of 1989. So just a definition on trauma, and I am a licensed therapist for trauma, and actually do have been invited quite kindly by Reverend William to be on the platform under spiritual counselors for trauma. So the definition given by the Canadian Addictions and Mental Health Centre in Toronto, in Canada, is trauma is the lasting emotional response that often results from living through a distressing event. Experiencing a traumatic event can harm a person's sense of safety, sense of self, and ability to regulate emotions and navigate relationships. Long after the traumatic event occurs, people with trauma can often feel shame, helplessness, powerlessness, and intense fear. So trauma can have lasting impressions that can also affect people's, not only their mental health, but also their physical health. So there is that link has been established through research. Part of why I thought I would write this is because there are many healing modalities dedicated to helping people heal on all levels. So in spiritualism, we heal through the ministry of angels and, our divine source energy, however you are comfortable to call the God of your understanding. We heal with spiritual doctors, we heal through trance. There's many different healing modalities that we recognize can happen, and of course mediumship. So what I've been noticing for myself, and just speaking from a personal perspective just for a bit, is that it's long been an interest of mine, how to help heal negative thought patterns for people that are, experiencing this. Because as a young girl, I noticed that my mother struggled with a whole bunch of these problems, behavioral, and mostly an inability to regulate her own anger. So, as a child growing up, I unfortunately bore the brunt of a lot of that anger, but I also received a lot of her love and attention, which helped me form into the person I am today. So part of my taking the healer's path is that I often wondered about my mother and why she behaved the way she did, which was a curiosity that led me to wonder why people behave as they do, which has led me, to my lifelong healing journey, which is also spiritualism and yoga. So this journey is not only to help heal others, and many people find themselves on this healing path, but also to heal yourself. So part of that development as a healer is, I feel, karmic. I feel like, this was meant to be my path in life. Because of the bond and the relationship that I had with my mother. It has led me to study extensively in the fields of psychology, counseling, and social work, and doing multiple placements as a counselor, lay counselor, intern counselor at Calgary Counseling Center in Calgary, for one example, and training in multiple modalities of therapy. So I've done a lot of different training in therapy that is also geared to helping people move on from their negative thoughts. I'll just say one of the most effective therapies I have found so far is accelerated resolution therapy. It's called ART or ART, because, with my spiritual healing education and also as a spiritualist, I found that I'm able to incorporate people's sense of the spiritual and the sacred into their therapy, where they can access their chakras, their spirit, their own higher self, through their own visualizations while doing the eye movements. So it is a powerful tool, and I've used it successfully to help heal and release myself from negative thoughts and or fixations. So spiritual energy healing starts with our thoughts, as our focused mind is very powerful. And in yoga, we call it creating a sankalpa, or a resolution. We create thereby the energy of intention or focus. In yoga, they call it one-pointed focus. And Jack Angelo, who wrote the book Hands-on Healing that we studied, says like attracts like. So in spiritualism, we acknowledge the law of attraction. As we change our inner messaging, we change our intentions. We adjust our energy to a more harmonious vibration, and we create space in our mind to hold the possibilities of positive outcomes. In essence, we change our own reality, our concept of reality, by changing our expectations, thought projections, and mindset. And likewise, we hold our trauma constructs in our energetic and physical bodies. And yoga also would call these constructs karma, that is held in the astral body and chakras, which affects the subconscious mind, or as yoga calls it, the chitta. So 35 years of trauma research, and this is specifically referring to EMDR, which some of you may be familiar with. It's eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. So EMDR trauma research has determined that traumatic memories can be accessed and processed, released through somatic means, hence the eye movement therapy that was discovered serendipitously by Francine Shapiro. So she was a psychology student, and she was walking in the park one day and suddenly knew that eye movements would help process her traumatic memory. Now, I always wonder what level of spirit involvement there is in these moments of insight, because I believe she was given that information to help others in a way that people can understand, because it is in science. It's validated empirically by many scientific studies. So she discovered this methodology and quickly formulated a modality of therapy to help people with, mostly it was post-traumatic stress disorder. I won't get into the meaning of that, but it was very much taken up by and promoted by the military complex in the States because of all these soldiers suffering from trauma. We have since found it is applicable to not just traumatic wartime experiences, but many forms of trauma. Why would we want to release trauma anyway? Why would we want to process it? Why would we want to, move on from thinking negative thoughts? I've been asked that question, like, why bother? And I believe that, when we work spiritually and in a healing modality, whether it's energy healing or, the spiritualist energy healing, asha, whatever that modality is, we're working with all the levels of the energy body to release the negative thoughts that stem from our root traumas. And when we start to move the energy, the traumas start to resurface, and we can process them and we can release them. And why would we want to do that? Well, in yogic thought, we think about, freedom from karma. Basically, if we release these negative thoughts, we ascend into a higher state. And for me, that has a lot to do with our spiritualist guideline. That's the 7th guideline that talks about the spirit's eternal evolution, right? Like the evolution of the soul. So to evolve, our soul needs to release negative thoughts. We need to process trauma. If we carry them, I do believe that, like attracts like. So we continually manifest traumatic circumstances in our life, or, we take it to the spirit world. And, being a believer in reincarnation, and that's certainly up to everybody's belief system, but I come from a yogic perspective. I believe we carry it on to our next lifetime. So, releasing attachments is very predominant in Buddhism as a way to end suffering. So even if we think we're just going to end our suffering in this lifetime, or we believe that we will go on evolving, I'm not sure there is any downside to releasing our trauma, to processing our trauma, or starting to change our thought systems so that they work for us rather than continually manifest in troublesome scenarios, and that by which we can sabotage ourselves. But that again is about choice. So once you know about these systems that are designed to help you release trauma, change your thinking, then it's about your choice to decide whether or not you need that or whether it's something that you're going to leave. And that's up to everybody. So with yoga, the yogic systems of philosophy, Patanjali wrote that we can achieve enlightenment through yoga, but yoga means yoking with the divine, and by yoking with the divine, we must thereby they call it suppression of the fluctuations of the mind. So what the mind does, all those negative thoughts, all those patterns, we have to learn how to be the master of our own mind. It's called Chitta Vritti Nirodha. It is a system designed to lead us on a path to transcendence by aligning ourselves with a much higher mind, Ishvara, or the God of our understanding. So by doing so, we release our karma, become one with the higher vibrational force, which some might call God or the divine source of all infinite intelligence. We are tapping into a much higher energy than we possess as humans to elevate our minds and alleviate mental suffering, which comes from the mind fluctuations or mindless, often negative thinking. So when we do our meditations, when we sit in the power, we are tapping into that higher source energy, the God of our understanding, if you will. We are sitting in the power, we're blending with the spirit world. We are still tapping into a higher energy than ours. So doing that, it does help alleviate mental suffering, because at that point, our mind will no longer be, going down those trails that are less than productive for us. And of course, thinking is what the mind is designed to do. However, we are observers of that thinking or our thoughts. We are the ones who can decide how helpful or harmful our thinking is. And so with my yoga practice and, the realization that my practice aligned with the 7 principles of spiritualism, I realized that sitting in alignment with, the hands-on healing text by Jack Angelo, that his suggested meditations for clearing chakras and, bringing these meditations into my own practice was very helpful. And I encourage everybody to think about what aligns with your, core beliefs or your core self, in the sense that it resonates for you, that you feel that it pulls you into a higher state of mind. In yoga, we call that the higher self, or the buddhi, the enlightened mind. Like, what brings you out of a narrower sort of focus and into that and your expanded state of mind, so that that type of mind there where we start to connect with the higher source energies. Whatever that is, that's where your heart is drawing you to. I would encourage you to do those things, because it's very different for people. But for me, it was yoga that did that. So the meditations that are mentioned in hands-on healing are all around the energies of each chakra, and also, what could be contained within the chakras, past negative experiences, earlier selves, younger selves. You can work with colors and imagery, because each chakra has a different color. And this amazing process of sort of delving into this, the energy system of the body and the spirit, is really, allows a safe and mindful release of any kind of negative energies that fuel our unconscious negative expectations or beliefs. So we do, and can hold on to some past life or inner child, past, childhood type wounds and emotions in the chakra system and other body energy systems. Well, there's so many layers to the aura, etheric, astral, mind, and spiritual level, to name a couple. You start to really become familiar when you delve into spiritual healing about how that works and how you can work with the levels of the aura or the layers of our energy field. The chakra colors, I've often thought they were lovely, they were beautiful, but now they are more of a code of understanding, describing this rainbow of light that makes up our energy body. My understanding of the use of colors in healing is shifting, and you start to understand that the colors equal the energetic vibration, which is also about the intelligence of prana or life force and divine light. And this also replenishes and helps heal the energy body. I'm not going to get into that very deeply, but it just shows that I have learned there are so many ways to heal our negative thinking patterns, whether it's coming in through the energy body, the chakras, which are part of that, or whether it's, through a more, psychotherapy like EMDR or ART, those modalities. The physical part of healing, of course, that we all know. But as spiritualists, we're talking about the spiritual parts of, how to integrate these healing systems and why is it important, right? So many ways to examine our thoughts and to start to move towards things in our life that helps us resonate it with a higher vibration, higher energy. And so in closing, I would just say that I do feel blessed that we can access and bring harmonious balance to our subtle energy body and our mental healing as well, our emotional mental healing in many ways. So through being in nature, prayer, healing, mediumship, spiritual healing, yoga, mindfulness meditation, sound and body therapies, psychotherapeutic modalities such as art, which work with somatic feedback. I always know that, I'm on a healing journey and I have a ways to go, but I do feel I've released karmic bonds that were inherited from my mother and possibly her mother before her. I mean, we could have made an agreement as spirit to assist each other to develop as healers. I don't know. I guess I'll find out. I have, discovered that there is no time nor linearity in the spirit world and that there are higher beings beyond my comprehension. So knowing this, I also place a lot of trust that my own highest good is being served by my growing healing sensitivity. And I continually align my healing intentions in the hands of Spirit and the Creator. With gratitude, namaste. Thank you.